Hi, and welcome back to Midnight to Morning video series that focuses on the next 2,000 years in the life of the Bride of Christ, where she is headed and why. These videos are centered on three gifts: a clock, a key, and a net, given as hidden manna to the Bride of Christ at her midnight hour in age-to-age timekeeping. Now, since the first millennium begins at midnight, the Bride of Christ will need a clock, a key, and a net as she walks with her bridegroom to the banqueting table at the end of the 8th day of creation. In the previous video, we began to look at the second millennium and the 6th letter to the Church of Philadelphia, where the key of David is discovered in the hands of the Holy One and True One. The key of David is a common diplomatic peace-seeking language that will encourage the gathering of a great multitude from every nation, tribe, and language. The key of David and the key of seven thunders are one and the same key. Now, the angel who opens the bottomless pit in Revelation 20 holds this key in his hand along with a great chain. In this video, we will look at the great chain and consider it to be a long passage of time, 10,000 years of spiritual deception linked together year after year after year. Each link in the chain creates humanity's anthropological history beginning at the noon hour on the Sabbath day, and then snaking its way into the 8th day where the whole of biblical history has been recorded. Now, the angel of Revelation 20 uses this great chain to seize and bind the dragon, throw the lesser voice of temporality into the bottomless pit of yesterday, seal the pit, and lock it over our spiritual enemy so its deceptive voice is silenced. Notice that this interpretation of the great chain, which binds the Satan for 1,000 years, does not include predictions of gloom and doom or violent overthrows, massive killings, or raptured ascensions of certain people while others are left behind. Everything that will happen and must happen during the second millennium will take place quietly within the mind, heart, and spirit of the whole of humanity. The revelation of the living Christ and the fulfillment of God's peaceable kingdom is a slow process. It's an unveiling that will lead people out of a state of spiritual bondage and into a state of spiritual freedom, out of darkness into the morning light of a new day. Conversely, the long chain of human history does reveal repeated cycles of violence, destruction, and death, but that judges and convicts the human spirit of its own spiritual sickness. Violence against each other and against creation is humanity's problem to acknowledge and own. The great chain of deception is the darkness our species must ascend from and leave behind. Violence is not the way of the Christ, nor is it a reflection of our Creator's image or likeness, which must be rightly restored within the human mind and heart before the end of time on the 8th day of creation. So looking back on thousands of years on the clock of seven thunders is actually a gift of hindsight, which allows the human spirit to ponder some of the deepest spiritual questions. Who are we? And to whom do we belong? Is our species incurably violent and hopelessly bound to the deception of a lesser voice of temporality? Or would our species prefer to be bound to God's one eternal voice and the message of a peaceable kingdom here on earth? If humanity uses this great chain of history to seize and bind the lesser voice of temporality, Will we need to throw our clocks and calendars into the bottomless pit along with the dragon? No. The images have no power or authority. They are harmless. So the task before us is to separate the power and authority of our timekeeping images, our visible clocks and calendars, from the power and authority of the invisible, lesser voice speaking to us from behind those timekeeping images. It is only the power and authority of the lesser voice that must be seized and bound for 1,000 years. That's the dragon that must be chained. Now, from where we are living, at the midnight hour on the 8th day, it may seem impossible to imagine a world in which nations are not armed against one another, or a world where hunger is no longer the cause of death, safe drinking water flows in every community, and respect for life extends to all living creatures, while the desire for power and control is quickly recognized as a sign of deception and easily put in check. While God's peaceable kingdom may seem impossible to imagine from where we stand today, a trajectory toward death and destruction is not the telos that leads toward the promised land of milk and honey. The promised land is a land where people beat their swords into plowshares and their spears into pruning hooks, where nation will not lift up sword against nation, and neither will they learn war anymore. But everyone will sit under their own vine and fig tree, and no one will make them afraid. For the mouth of the Lord of all creation has spoken this. Next up, the beast and its image. See you then.